Today we're working with batch files. So the first command in the bat file is going to be dir, L-E-T-R, in asterisk, so it'll catch all of the numbers at the end of the file, .doc. Control Z to end, and now we have a bat file. So if we type in dirlet, it's going to show us the directory listing for those letters. To help us keep track of what the bat file does, we can use the remark command. This allows you to leave a message in the batch file. So with our edit program open, we can type in rem, which is the rem command, and then we could type in a brief explanation of what the bat file does. There we go. So now if we save and exit and we type in dirlet, it's going to show us at the top there, rem directory of letters, followed by the directory listing for the letters. Next, most DOS commands include one or more parameters. When using the directory command, for example, we can use /w to show the directory listing in a wide format. Batch files can have a replaceable parameter added. So in front of dir, we can type in %1, save, and exit. So the bat file can be executed like normal. You don't have to define a parameter. However, you can now use /w, for example, to display in the wide format, or /s if we were going to search the entire drive page on us.
Let's create a simple file using the find command. This batch file will display all the records from the phbk.txt file that contain a string we specify as the parameter. The parameter is case sensitive, so typing it in all caps rendered no results, but typing cons in lowercase returned all of our results for the consultants in the phonebook file. Now let's create a second file that will do a compound search. This batch file will accept two parameters. The results of the first find command are passed to the second find command to further filter the output. Say we want to find all of the consultants with the last name Jones. One last simple file to create will be one that displays the results except the ones containing a string you specify. This batch file requires one parameter, that is the string you don't want to see, like so. So that is going to filter out all of the phone numbers with the area code beginning in 747. Something we may want to do is use one batch file to carry out the commands in another. One way to do this is to chain the batch files, which we'll look at now. Another option is to use the call command. The first if command checks whether the first parameter typed with the show command is accept. The equals compares two strings to see if they are identical. If %1 is the same as accept, then showAccept.bat will be carried out. The second parameter, %2, you type with the show command, is the string to search for. It is the single parameter required by showAccept.bat. The second if command checks whether the first parameter typed with the show command is AND. If it is, then showAND.bat is carried out. The second and third parameters, %2 and %3, are the two strings to search for. If the first parameter is not accept or AND, then the find command is carried out to perform the search. Let's take a look at how that works. There we go. So it used show and dot bat and passed the two parameters, cust for customers and the last name Jones. So we get the one matching result from the phone book file, James Jones. The shift command moves the list of parameters you type with the batch command one position to the left. Say we type 3 parameters with a batch command. After the shift command is carried out once, what was %3 becomes %2. What was %2 becomes %1, and what was %1 is gone. This command allows a short batch file to handle any number of parameters. As for the batch file here, we start with @echo_off. Then we have the label start, which marks the beginning of the commands that will be repeated for each parameter. Next, the if command is comparing the first parameter, %1, to the double quote marks, which means null. If this is true, that the first parameter is null, then go to the label done. Then we have an echo command to display the names of the files being archived, followed by an if command that checks if the file to be archived is already on drive A. If it isn't, the copy command copies the file from the current drive to drive A. The shift command moves the list of parameters one position to the left, and the goto command sends MS-DOS back to the label start. The label done marks the end of the batch file. Let's test the batch file with 3 parameters. So we tried to archive p.old, q.doc, and q.old. p.old was already on drive A, so there wasn't confirmation that the file was copied. However, q.doc and q.old were not already there, so those 2 files did get copied. Next, we have a batch file that demonstrates the for command. Sometimes you may want MS-DOS to carry out a command more than once in a batch file. The for command does just that. The for command has 3 parameters. %p is a replaceable parameter used inside the for command. MS-DOS assigns it the values in set. Set is the list of values in the parentheses here that gets assigned to %p. In this case, we've chosen Adventures in Nostalgia, and the command can be any MS-DOS command other than another for command. So for example here, we're using the echo command. Let's see what this looks like when we execute the batch file. In this case, we didn't have @echo_off set, so it's going to show us each command as it's executed. So the for command echoed the word adventures, echoed the word in, and then echoed the word nostalgia, then it finished. This is just an example of how to use the for command. You can also use replaceable parameters for set. So instead of Adventures in Nostalgia, we can use %1, %2, %3. So now that will echo dog, cat, and then mouse. Now echo is not the only command that can be used with this. We can try something a little more practical, like make directory. So that made the directory games, apps, and data. So we can use dir/ad, which is the attribute for A, directory for D, and that's going to show us just the directories in the current directory we're in, which is data. So our for command created the directories games, apps, and data for us. In MS-DOS versions 3.3 and later, you can use the call command. The call command causes DOS to come back and continue with the next command in the original batch file. This allows you to use a batch command of your own making in a batch file just like you would any other MS-DOS command. Let's take a look at this batch file here that will echo a parameter. We have @echo_off to reduce screen clutter, and the echo command followed by %1. Now, let's look at a batch file that will call echoit.bat. In this batch file, we have @echo_off, followed by a for command with 3 parameters in set that will call echoit.bat. After the for command executes, we return to the original batch file to pause and then echo the message end of echoall.bat. Let's give it a shot. There's the parameters we entered, adventures in nostalgia, followed by the pause, and then the message end of echoall.bat. So that is how the call command is used. Next, we have the choice command. Starting with MS-DOS version 6.0, you can make batch commands interactive. Here's a batch file that gives you a menu of programs to choose from using the choice command. We start with the obligatory @echo_off, followed by clear screen. Then we have our title, choose a program. Next, we have echo period to add a line space, followed by some programs to choose from, checkdisk, DOS shell, and QBasic. The choice command has 3 parameters, C:, followed by some keys, /n, and then text, which we can type anything we want. It's a message that's displayed on the screen. For C:, we are using the letters D, Q, C, and E. These are the keys that you can press to make a selection at the prompt. Then we have /n, which is going to hide the prompt. And we have the text, which in this case is a message, telling the user to press one of those keys. Then we have the error level. This is how DOS knows what to do with the key that was pressed. For example, if you press the letter C, the batch file will go to the label chkdsk, or checkdisk. When done, it will relaunch the menu. Here is our label for checkdisk down here. It runs the executable, pauses when it's done, and goes back to the menu at the end. Let's take a look at how that works. So the screen is cleared. We have our title, choose a program, followed by the options that we can select from. I am going to choose C for checkdisk. That runs checkdisk with no defined parameters, so this is the output that we're given. And then we have the pause. Press any key to continue, which I will do, and then it goes right back into the menu. We could choose QBasic as well, or DOS shell, which we will be using QBasic in a later video involving programming in the BASIC language.